Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I also appreciate the opportunity you gave me to introduce my friend and American hero, Sheriff Bouchard, for having this hearing. Opioid addiction has impacted every community across America, and it's especially hit the residents of my district in Oakland and Macomb counties. The previous administration's policies left a trail of destruction, heartbreak, and broken families in its wake, and now it's up to us to clean it up. Simply going from 100,000 deaths per year to 90,000 deaths per year is not a success we should be applauding. The number is 0, and we will work continuously across the aisle to continue to move in that direction. Recent data from the CDC demonstrates that in 2024, 2,931 lives were lost in Michigan alone. That's the number of U.S. service members died in 20 years in Afghanistan. 2,352 is how many people we lost in Afghanistan in 20 years. More than a war's worth of death in 1 year in my state alone. Previous year's data shows us a trend of failed border policies from a president that failed American families. The rising tide of fentanyl-related tragedies has made it evident that something is not working when it comes to stopping the flow of illicit drug trafficking, and families in Oakland and Macomb counties continue to experience personal loss. Highlighting this urgency for innovative investigative approaches is essential. However one feels about tariffs, President Trump is right. Our neighbors in Canada and Mexico must help us stop the flow of illicit drugs entering our borders. No amount of scapegoating and retaliatory tariffs is going to stop our people from dying. Sheriff Bouchard, can you please speak briefly to the experiences that your officers have gone through in dealing with the fentanyl and instances of overdoses and opioids that you've seen?
Thank you. We've seen an increase in difficulty in bringing them back. That's part of the reason we added OPVI to our tool chest, because we were seeing multiple people we tried to resuscitate weren't responding on 1 or 2 or even 3 doses of Narcan as you wait for the prescribed times, things like that. We know that communication and some of the prevention programs have been helpful, I think eye-opening, especially when we're doing them in high schools. But it's important that we don't minimize or reduce our focus on holding the people that are killing people intentionally for profit accountable for what they do. That's why in that one case I mentioned earlier, we prosecuted the individual for causing the death, murdering the person that died from the overdose. It's a poisoning. It's something they did not anticipate, did not ask for, and did not want. And that's murder in my book.
100%. There are considerable drains on your resources which inhibit your ability to fight trafficking and confront emerging threats as well. What are some of these drains on your resources? What are some of those emerging threats? And what can Congress do to assist?
Well, now we're getting into a broader question, specifically above and beyond fentanyl, and that goes to counterterrorism and the threat matrix that we're facing, the threat picture that we see. And former Director Wray testified multiple times that we're seeing more bells and whistles now than we did on 9/10. As a member of the Joint Terrorist Task Force and very involved in that space, we're very concerned, and obviously that's drawing more and more of our resources and attention to what things we may be facing that we're not communicating about. And I would encourage all of Congress to re-examine what we're doing. It seems on many fronts we've lost some of the lessons of 9/11. We're communicating less, sharing intel less. We don't have a real-time ability to even communicate on even a secret level, where you've got terrorists that are communicating on encrypted apps, and I'm having to go find a skiff to get a brief on something that's emerging. We need to figure this out and get back to understanding there's a real threat facing this country on lots of levels.
So it is easier to conduct criminal activities in this country than it is to conduct law enforcement operations in this country.
Absolutely.
And we need to fix that. I totally agree. What specific resources, funding streams, or interagency coordination mechanisms do you believe Congress should prioritize to strengthen fentanyl trafficking and trafficking enforcement, sir?
I think it's important to, again, focus on some of the programs that have worked. We're good with examining and auditing programs to make sure that the money's being properly and wisely spent, because in our agencies we do that. We know that there's limited pool and it's got to be spent appropriately and on the priority mission. But for us, and specifically the fentanyl space, it would be the joint teams, HIDA, that partnership and that relationship, grants to labs that can be maybe getting out in front of some of these things, and protocols on what our folks should be doing on the street, not only to save people, but how to handle anything they recover.
Thank you. I would like a couple seconds. I would like to recognize Miss Christine Zabo, who I witnessed save a life on a Detroit street corner. For all of those who are invisible, who are saving lives, we see you, we appreciate you. Thank you for your service. Thank you all.